This episode is sponsored by Chapman and Company. Welcome to the Startup Spotlight series hosted by Mug.News. In this show, we highlight startups throughout Middle America who are supporting their community through diversity, innovation, and creativity. I am your host, Caitlin Clays, so sit back, relax, and enjoy this week's Spotlight. Welcome to the Startup Spotlight series, where we highlight impressive startups throughout the Midwest. Here with me today is Leslie Roberson, the owner of the Velvet Collection, a luxury rental provider based in Chicago, Illinois. Leslie, thank you so much for coming onto the show today.
Caitlin, thank you for having me.
Of course. So jumping right in, could you tell me a little bit more about the Velvet Collection, what you do and what you're up to?
So the Velvet Collection provides luxury linen rental for small events, corporate events, anything that you can imagine. So tablecloths, napkins, pillow covers, and table runners are all available for rentals.
Oh my goodness. And so weddings, I assume too, as well?
Of course, you can't get away without doing weddings. So I always say that at the Velvet Collection, you come in as your authentic self, who you are today, because you at 35 may not be the same you at 45. Come in, select a fabric, a color, anything that speaks and resonates with you. We have over 500 different textures in our store, just for you to find whatever speaks to your spirit today.
Wow, 500. That is fantastic. I love weddings, and so it's always very fun to kind of peruse. So then, when were you founded?
So actually, we were born during the pandemic. So I did the grand opening back in June 24th, to be exact.
Wow. So you said that it was founded during the pandemic. Were you preparing prior and it really took off during the pandemic, or?
Actually, no. So last year, so every year I'm like the person in my circle that does the dinner party. So for my birthday. And so I always invite my guests over to have these beautiful, elaborate meals. And there's a chef, and there's flowers, and there's table linen, and all the beautiful things that create an event. And this year or last year, because of the pandemic, I had to create an experience for my guests, but it had to be social. Everyone had to socially distance. So everyone was required to bring a +1 so they could have someone to be in there 6 feet apart with, and that they would be comfortable, but everyone else was spread apart. But what I realized, because I love textures and I love dinner parties, things of that nature, is that the thing that creates the experience, no matter what's going on, right, even in the midst of a pandemic, are going to be the decor and the textures and the context of the table to create an experience. And so despite the pandemic and wearing masks, all of my guests, they got their hair done, they got their nails done, they dressed up, they were fancy, they were fretful about who to bring as a date, despite the pandemic. And it was because of the elevation of the experience. And so it kind of got me to thinking about, how do you do this? What is it that's making this event different? Because I can always just throw chicken in a pan and we can have like just a gathering, or I can put it in a shaper. I can hire a chef. I can grab a musician to come over and play maybe the saxophone and add table dressing, table linen to just make it beautiful. And that's exactly what I did. And I wanted to be able to offer that to everyone else. And so here we are with the Velvet Collection.
Oh my gosh, that sounds like such a lovely, almost like mental health thing too. You know, we're
Absolutely.
in social distancing, and then in addition to, because I feel like some social skills have gotten a little rusty because we've been used to like just social distancing. So the thought to let people bring their significant other or a +1, just really like fills the soul, kind of feels like.
Absolutely. I think that it gave everyone an opportunity. I mean, we played games. It was like a complete affair. And everyone, here it is, we're a year later from that experience. Everyone's still calling like, so what are we doing this year? Because it's such an experience where they feel welcome, and it's creating memories and something that's long-term sustainable. And that's what I think, things that are beautiful when you're thinking about table linen and dressing and decor, it helps define that memory that's there. And so you think about it long after the experience is complete. And then, so one of the things I pride myself on with the Velvet Collection, when you come into the store, every design, the store is a beautiful store and it's such a warm and welcoming space. And I always say, you come in by yourself or you come in with guests, it becomes your space. You create it, you schedule an appointment. And so you're there pulling whatever you like, touching, feeling, you're comparing fabrics. And so the experience of your 30th birthday dinner doesn't begin at the birthday dinner. It actually starts when you get out of your car and come into the Velvet Collection, because there's wine and there's charcuterie, and we're creating an experience for you to remember at the start of entering the business. And then not only will you talk about the wonderful dinner that you had and allow your guests to experience an extension of you through these fabrics and the way you've designed your experience, but you also remember when you came into the store too. So you've been allowed to create another experience with whomever your guests are.
Mm-hmm. So I'm also a visual thinker and learner,
Yeah.
and you are painting a lovely picture. I haven't even been to the store, but I feel like I can see it and feel the energy
Yeah.
and vibe of it. And if your website is any indication, please, like, viewers, go and check out their website. It's absolutely aesthetically beautiful.
Absolutely. And that's exactly what it is that I'm wanting to really be able to provide. So when I talk about everyone being their authentic selves, I think that the way we dress and the way we put ourselves together every day, we're allowing people to experience the things that are going in inside of us, right? That are going on. And so just like at the start of this call, I'm going, oh, let me grab a lipstick because that's who I am, right? And I'm allowing people to see me a certain way. And I think that when we're doing dinner parties and events or weddings or bar mitzvahs or bat mitzvahs or whatever that is, whatever we're doing is an extension of who we are. And we're allowing our guests to experience us, but in a different way, in a more holistic manner of us. And so I think that that's the experience right there. And so this store is nestled in Hyde Park, over in Chicago, the Hyde Park neighborhood, I should say, in Chicago. Gorgeous store, beautiful neighborhood, fantastic community. And so I think that the ideal of having that space and that serenity, so to speak, it allows you and gives you that vibe where you just want to be whoever you are as an individual. And I think that the Velvet Collection allows you to be just that.
So then you had mentioned you have 500, textiles, options,
Yeah.
linens to choose from. How do you go ahead and pick those to feature? How do you have like providers, or where do you find those linens?
So I have been fortunate enough to find fabrics all over the place, literally. I have a manufacturer here in the United States that'll create these tablecloths and fabrics for me. And then what's really interesting about the fabrics that I selected, I had no idea, because this isn't the industry that I'm from. So I had no idea what customers were like. And so at some point I decided I'm going to select everything that I like, all the colors that I like, all the fabrics that I love, everything I think would make a good tablescape. And I've done just that. And the response I've received from the customers that are customers coming into the store or the studio has been just jaw dropping, because to hear people walk in and they're like, oh my God, this is gorgeous. And this is my favorite. And they're pulling all these pieces. I sometimes let some event designers, I let them go. I say, pull everything you like. And before I know it, they have 400 pieces out of the 500 all over the store, hanging from the balances and all these things. And I'm like, okay, now take those, narrow it down to 20 pieces that you like. So I've literally done this with several designers, but to see that the items that I've selected are resonating with the clientele is absolutely amazing. It's a great feeling there.
Wow. So those designers, how do you meet them? Are they from your community, or have you met them over online through this
Yes,
pandemic?
it's been just that. So some of them are from the community I've been introduced to, but actually, I think the first designer that I worked with was Nicole Marie Pittman. Nicole Marie Pittman is a scaled event curator here based out of Chicago, but she's done things nationally, internationally as well, where she's created events and experiences for large companies, great for celebrity styles, things of that nature. And I met her once, probably in 2016. And I said to her then, I'm thinking about opening up a linen rental store. It was just a thought. I didn't put any effort behind it. I was just thinking. And she says, well, if you decide to do it, let me know. So this is 2016. So in October, after I decided that this is what I'm going to do, this October that passed after my birthday dinner, I sent her a note and I said, hey, I met you in 2016, thinking about opening this store now. Would you have time to chat? And so we jump on a call and she gives me 5 pages of notes. Oh, these are all the things that you have to accomplish. And when are you thinking about opening? And she's like, I say, well, maybe in February. This is October. I say, well, maybe in February. She's like, but you still have to. And she runs down 2 more pages of notes to say, there's no way you're going to open in February. And so I said, well, maybe I open in March, And so sure enough, I didn't have her entire list of ideas completed yet, but the space was there because I had the space and what I wanted it to look like and feel like in my mind. And so I was able to find a space and get it designed pretty quickly because of it and get it out there. And so I called her up at the end of February and I go, hey, I don't have everything done that you were suggesting, but I got a lot of it done. Come visit. So she comes into the store and she's like, shut up. Did you have this? I'm like, no, I didn't have it. So she is one of my biggest fans, and I probably vice versa. There's a synergy there in terms of collaboration. And she has used the linens. She's created the first, the fall winter collection. It's called the Nicole Marie collection. And so she's pulled fabrics that she loves and she's actually utilizing for some of her events, gorgeous, gorgeous events. And so to be able to take part and participate in such a magical designers, just as she creates these experiences has been tremendous for me. So that's how I've come across. And then several of the others, some of it is by happenstance where someone's going, hey, there's this new linen company, you should check them out. Or that, hey, Leslie is somebody you should know, you should meet her. And so it's been pretty organic so far. It's been amazing.
Wow, that's really beautiful to see that the community, in addition to those personal connections, has really come together.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, so then what about community resources? Were there some grants, funding, anything like that from your community that helped you build?
Absolutely. So I have actually participated in several grant opportunities that I've applied for, heard about different programs, getting my women, minority, veteran-owned business certifications. Actually, I participated in Share the Green with Waste Management, where they teach you all women entrepreneurs, teach them all about pitching their business, getting in alignment, becoming in alignment with corporations. They're actually funding a bunch of us to attend eCornell Women's Leadership Program to help us get our certification. So it's been a whirlwind of just a series of events where everyone's like, hey, you should join this or you should do this. And so I've been fortunate enough to be aligned with several of those opportunities. And so with that being said, as I'm like just jumping out there. And so I always say the biggest thing for entrepreneurs is getting your name out there and letting people know that you are in existence and interacting and being comfortable with engaging, because you get your Chamber of Commerce. And so I've done a ribbon cutting ceremony with the Chamber of Commerce. Not only did I do my grand opening, but I did a ribbon cutting ceremony. But they've introduced me to just about every business in the university and the community, where it gives me a lot more foot traffic and a lot of opportunities. So I've been in a newspaper several times just by communicating and letting people know that we're in existence.
Mm-hmm. So we've touched on this a little bit more previously, where you offered this luxury, like energy and vibe, and you really care about your clients, it feels. So
yes,
with that wine and charcuterie, it almost feels like those wedding, when you go wedding dress shopping, and just that kindness and warmth. So I wanted to ask then, if you would want to build upon that, what are your company's goals or your mission statements? Is there something you're doing now and that you're reaching towards in the future?
So now and reaching towards it in the future. So from goals perspective, my goal is to become the luxury linen provider for high valued clientele and then also corporations. And so just wanting, and then also there's a part of me that has a complete passion for like those that are wanting, like that has a regular home and they just want to scale it a little bit by creating this experience. That's kind of like a sweet spot for me in terms of just personally. And I say that because my first dinner party, no one would ever know this, but I got pallets. You know, the pallets that you move, the crates that you move boxes on. I got 8 of those and created a table. And I put cardboard on top of it and taped it down to make it stable and put tablecloths on top of it. So it was a bohemian style dinner party. I did tablecloth, and then all 8 of those pallets were full of food and decor and flowers and all this wine and all this stuff. And my guests would have never known. But to think that you could build a table out of something as simple as a couple pallets, to be able to do it yourself on a budget, because I was budgeting. And so, but to be able to create an experience for my guests despite it. So there's a part of me that's always like, oh, you're doing something at home, let me help you, you know. So even though my lofty corporate goal or organizational goal is to become a linen provider for corporations and high value or high net worth individuals, yes, that's great, but that's my sweet spot over there. And then the other thing in terms of our mission is to be able to become that premier linen provider, but also to be able to create a sustainable product and organization that partners with other vendors that are minority based. That is something that is extremely important to me, is to make sure I'm giving other corporations and other designers and other partnerships the attention that's necessary for them to be successful as well. And so oftentimes when I'm working with a designer, I may say, hey, I have this mixologist that could be fantastic, or I have this catering company that would be fantastic, or this women-owned business over here that would be great to add, to be able to make sure that they're getting that opportunity and visibility as well. And so as I've been fortunate enough to have like PR and all these different components, I bring literally whomever I can with me along the ride.
Mm-hmm. Diversity, equity, and inclusion is so important. And especially nowadays, so especially with Mug.News and our shows, we like to ask of how are you supporting your community? And you brought it up. And it's so important to be able to have people able to come to the table, whereas previously there might not have been as much highlight on such importance.
Absolutely.
Right.
I have somewhat of an advantage because I have a corporate career behind me. And so I've worked corporate probably since I've gotten out of grad school for the most part. And so I have a different skill set than some entrepreneurs that may be just getting started or maybe not know. And so the ability to gain the traction and the visibility has just been different for me. And so because of that advantage that I have, so to speak, my goal is to help others gain that level of visibility as well, and to help them, hey, there's a program that's happening, and giving the information instead of being the keeper of it, and making sure I extend out that olive branch is something that's extremely important to me.
Mm-hmm. So then, speaking of that encouragement and looking through it at that lens, would you mind sharing a little bit about a hardship you experienced when you were first getting started, and then any advice for beginning business owners who might experience the same thing?
I think that, so in terms of hardship, I'm probably closer to hardship now, because it's where like now it's time to get in there and just do the work. At the end of the day, no matter if you can have PR and a marketing team and all these things behind you, at the end of the day, you just got to get out there and do the work and get the foot traffic and go shake hands and go introduce yourself and introduce the business and the brand and representing the brand. And so for me, I was fortunate enough to have a lot of those pieces at the early stages of the start of the business, the launch of the business, getting the word out that we exist. And now that that's there, now I got to get out there and do the foot traffic. And so get out and go. Now that people know about me, now I got to go meet them. So I think that as an entrepreneur, that's what it's always going to come down to, is still being able to have those organic channels. There's just nothing about social media, even though it's fantastic, it doesn't take away from going to shake a hand, you know, and going to say hello and having coffee and introducing yourself as a part of an extension of your brand. And I think that that's a piece that, or even the handwritten note, things of that nature that sets one business apart from another. And that's something that at the Velvet Collection, I'm very conscious of, is if someone uses my product, instead of just having a note printed for them, I write it out by hand. Happy 40th birthday. Thank you for allowing me to be a part of it. And so just to say thank you. And I think that those small touches, when you're selling your product and saying, hey, choose me, and this is why. You know, that I think that could be the why a lot of times for a lot of corporations, and creating that experience, not just from beginning to end, customer service. And so just being able to, so when you say hurdles that I had, I was fortunate enough, I've been fortunate enough, and I'm still relatively new, and I'm sure the hurdles will come some point. But right now I'm just in the mode where I'm pushing the narrative and getting out there and shaking hands and saying hello. Just doing the work.
Yeah. You know, and one thing is just that you've given me a lot to think about, and you're bringing back some really happy memories I've had regarding linens and things like that. So, like I said, weddings are just super lovely to have. And something about textiles and linens is that you don't realize how much it does elevate and embellish your experience. Absolutely. Until it's there.
Yeah, it's one of those things that you don't think you need until you got it.
100%. My mom, and it reminds me, my mother was very much a hostess. She was called the Hostess with the Mostest.
That's right.
And we did have, when we would set up, we had our favorite like linens and stuff like that. It would be preparation, like make sure they're clean, otherwise we can't.
That's right. So that's how I got into this. Actually, my grandmother, when I was a kid, she'd host these elaborate affairs for her friends and families. And I can remember I'd help her put the event together, get the linen out and the napkins and unfolding and things of that nature as a kid. But I would see all of her friends and family, they'd come to her home with their fur coats on, and they'd be all dressed up, and it was an entire experience. And so even as a young person, I could tell what it was that she was creating. And then my grandmother, may God rest her soul, 20 years plus, she's passed away at this point. Her friends and family are still talking about those events and how she created these affairs. And so with that being said, I think that it's so much more. It's cultivating an experience for your guests. And so linen is definitely one of those things you always think you can get away without, but it's one of those, it's also, once you have it and it elevates your affair and just adds that pop of color, that bit of texture, I think that you will always remember it, and it'll just create a different experience.
Mm-hmm. So then, as we're kind of coming to an end, I wanted to ask, do you have any final thoughts, resources that you recommend, or any advice like that?
Let's see. I say always be true to whoever you are. Make sure that you're cognizant of what you're giving out to others, and treat people just as well as you enjoy being treated, and creating that experience. Because I think that's where the detail is creating the experience. And in terms of resources, I always say, check out your local Chamber of Commerce. Make sure you join if you're not a member, and then begin to network with those other businesses, because what you'll find is that there's a lot of collaboration and lines that are crossed where you can partnership, and there will be a lot of opportunity there in itself.
Oh, thank you so much for that advice. And then lastly, how can we support you? How can our viewers help and support social media? How can we help?
Like us on social media, Your Velvet Collection on Instagram and The Velvet Collection on Facebook.
Amazing. Well, Leslie, thank you so much for coming onto the show, and I really appreciate all the advice and perspective you had.
Caitlin, thank you for having me. You've been fabulous.
Well, that is all the time we have for today, so thank you so much to our guest for sharing more information about her business. You can find out more about what Leslie does through the links in the description, or you can go to mug.news to see her featured article. Make sure to leave a comment and follow mug.news for more highlights like this one. We will see you next time in the Spotlight.